I'd like to welcome everyone to the May 9th, 2023 regular session of the Howell Township Council. Opening statement, please.
This meeting is being held in accordance with Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, Open Public Meetings Act. Adequate notice has been provided by transmitting the notice of this meeting to the Asbury Park Press and the Star Ledger by posting it on the bulletin board reserved for such announcements in the Township Municipal Building and by filing it with the municipal clerk on January 6, 2023. This agenda is complete to the extent known, and formal action will be taken.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Fisher? Here. Councilman Gazier?
Here.
Councilman Nadell?
Here.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Here.
And Mayor Berger will be late this evening.
All right. In terms of executive session, would you read the resolution?
Resolution 2310 authorizes the governing body to enter into executive session and to discuss the following items. We have attorney-client privilege, litigation, and personnel matters.
Thank you. May I have a motion to go into exec?
Motion to go to exec.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
Councilman Gazier?
Yes.
Councilman Nadell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes. Thank you. We stand in executive session.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank you for joining us for the meeting on this evening, May 9, 2023. Executive session was at 6, regular session is at 7. I would like to call this meeting to order at 7:01 p.m.
I'll begin with a roll call. Councilwoman Fisher?
Here.
Councilman Gazier?
Yes.
Councilman Nadell?
Here.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Here.
Mayor Berger?
Here.
Thank you.
If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and then have a moment of silence for all of our heroes, fallen and ill. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we have some proclamations. So the first proclamation is Mental Health Awareness Month. Krista? Please come up.
Good evening. I've had a couple proclamations over the past months for prevention awareness. This should be the last one for a while. So in any case, tonight's proclamation is May is Mental Health Awareness Month 2023. Whereas according to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, 1 in 4 adults experiences a diagnosable mental disorder in any given year. And whereas according to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, 1 in 6 youth ages 6 to 17 experiences a diagnosable mental health disorder in any given year in the U.S. And whereas according to the CDC's 2021 Youth Risk Behavior Survey, 42% of high school students experienced persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness during the past year that stopped them from doing their usual activities. And whereas in the same report, 22% of high school students seriously considered attempting suicide, 18% of high school students made a suicide plan, and 10% of high school students attempted suicide 1 or more times during the past year. And whereas over 48 million people annually in the U.S. experience an anxiety disorder, and whereas less than half of the adults in the U.S. who need mental health services and treatment get the help they need. And whereas the Howell Alliance for Substance Abuse Prevention and Mental Health Awareness remains committed to providing mental health education, public awareness, support resources, and stigma reduction so that all of our community members feel supported and able to seek assistance for mental health conditions. Now therefore be resolved that the governing body of the Township of Howell does hereby proclaim May 2023 as Mental Health Awareness Month in Howell Township and commend its observance to all citizens. Thank you.
The second proclamation is National Public Works Week, May 21 through May 27. Who's reading that? Thank you.
Whereas Public Works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of the Township of Howell. And as whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of Public Works professionals. They are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And as whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in the Township of Howell to gain knowledge of and to maintain a progressive interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And now, therefore, on behalf of Mayor Berger of the Township of Howell and the governing body, I do hereby proclaim May 21st through the 27th of 2023 as National Public Works Week in the Township of Howell, and encourage all citizens to recognize the substantial contributions our public works personnel make daily, protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you. The next proclamation is Distracted Driving Crackdown, April 1 through April 30th.
Whereas distracted driving is a serious, life-threatening practice that is preventable, and whereas distracted driving can result in injuries and deaths to all road users, and whereas distracted driving occurs when drivers divert their attention away from the task of driving to focus on another activity instead, and whereas from 2011 through 2022, distracted driving-related crashes resulted in 32,000 deaths on our nation's roads, and whereas in New Jersey, distracted driving was listed as a contributing circumstance in 50% of all motor vehicle crashes from 2016 through 2020, and whereas the state of New Jersey will participate in the nationwide distracted driving 2023 crackdown from April 1st through 30th, 2023, in an effort to raise awareness and decrease driver distraction through a combination of enforcement and education. And whereas the national slogan for the campaign is "You drive, you text, you pay," and whereas a reduction in distracted driving in New Jersey will save lives on our roadways. Now, therefore, I, on behalf of Teresa Berger, Mayor of the Township of Howell, on behalf of the governing body, do hereby proclaim support of the distracted driving 2023 crackdown in the Township of Howell and nationally, and pledge to increase awareness of the dangers of distracted driving.
Thank you. Could we leave the reports to the end and then go directly to the hearing of citizens?
So, Mayor, we have something on for the reports that I would like to take care of first. We've invited Jen Beam here tonight as the planning board planner, and we have President Al Miller from the Board of Ed. We received a letter from the board about a shared sentiment that we all have, which is the safety of our children, in particular with some of the development that's been happening in town. I think the board wanted to make sure that, obviously we're keeping everybody as safe as possible. And there was a question about traffic studies. So I thought it would be good to have Jen here to explain for the public and to President Miller sort of what we account for when we do our traffic studies, so that they know that, the safety of kids is always paramount for us.
So can we do that and then move forward and then go back? This way we could kind of move the meeting forward?
We can do that. I know President Miller's taken time out of his schedule and
Absolutely.
from another meeting to be here.
We will move with that piece
But,
right now.
if you want to get to the hearing of the citizens, we'll get there right away, but I think this is important to handle first.
Absolutely.
So we can wait a
Absolutely.
couple minutes.
Totally respect. So who would like to begin, Jen or
I
Mr.
mean,
Miller?
I guess the question is, maybe you can come up and then ask the question that you have, because I'm not 100%. I saw the letter that you submitted, but I just am curious, exactly what the question is, and then I'll try the best I can to answer it.
Well, I could read into the record, if you don't mind, the letter from the board.
Sure.
Okay. So on our meeting the other night, the board forwarded a letter to the Mayor Council at Planning and Zoning, I believe. and to the township manager. And it says, "In spirit of collaborative community representative and various occasions, the Howell Township Board of Education has corresponded with the municipal governing body and agencies regarding the magnitude and schedule of our school transportation and the impact that any development or infrastructure may have on the safe convenience of our students. In lieu of individual letters, we would like to request that the same collaborative spirit that you convey to all boards, departments, and authorities and others appropriate the following information. There have been concerns raised regarding various applications involving warehouses and truck traffic on several roadways. The Howell Township Board of Education transports approximately 5,600 students to and from school each day in the school in session. We are certain you share our concern for the safety of the students and drivers of our buses as well as other vehicles on our roadways. The bus routes are primarily conducted during the hours of 6:30 to 9:15 a.m., 11 to 12:30 p.m., and 1:45 to 5:30 p.m. This does not include the numerous high school, private schools, and special purpose routes that share our roadways. We request that any traffic study or roadway evaluation include these time periods and volumes in the analysis. Additionally, we stand ready to provide any input, support on statistical data which could benefit and review our evaluation for the betterment of our community. Should you need to discuss this specific district transportation issues, feel free to contact either Mr. Sanasak, and we gave the phone number, or Ms. Tara Vasquez, and we gave you a phone number. Kindly share this with any of your partners that may utilize the information. You are truly in the safety of our children, and it's signed by myself and Ms. Daisola, our superintendent. And we really just forward this, and we have done this in the past, so this is not a new letter. Just as a reminder that whatever traffic studies that you do, that you can include the students in it. It's just for the safety of the students. We know that you do already include our school buses in your studies. So we just ask that you, as a reminder, if you could just continue that partnership with us. And what I think it came out of many partners in our community have come up before you and have asked for us to come before you and ask that you include the school buses in your reports. So we have also, as the school partners, to join with them in asking you to remember the school buses, which I think you already are doing, but we're just asking also that you include that.
So, a couple of things.
Okay?
We, as a township, do not do the traffic studies. The applicants, professionals, do the traffic studies. And they do the traffic studies in the peak hour of the roadways. So, the AM probably already includes the buses. The PM peak, it depends on the time of day, because the PM peak of the road could be 5 to 7 p.m. I understand that there's a half hour or so area after school dismisses, whatever school it is, where the buses leave and the cars go out, etc. But that may not be the PM peak of the road in its totality. So, I'm not a traffic engineer, and I don't prepare the studies, so I'm not one to speak to that specifically. But I will tell you generically, the analysis of the roadway includes every single vehicle that is on the road, the movements that they make in the peak hour of that road. And that peak hour may or may not coincide with the peak hour of school. So a high school that lets out at 2:30, 3 o'clock may not be the peak hour of that road. That road may be peak hour 2 hours later. So it's not to say that they're not ignoring the buses, but you're not part of the peak. So I will say that every vehicle that drives on the roads is evaluated in the peak hour, in the AM peak, the PM peak, and the weekend peak, to be honest. So there's no buses on Saturday, but they do still study Saturday peak, because if it's a retail store, the peak is important on a Saturday. So I understand your concern. But I will say that every vehicle that drives whatever road is being studied, in the peak hour of that road, PM peak, AM peak, and the weekend peak, is evaluated. So they're not ignoring you, they are evaluating the buses, but sometimes, like, I understand, like, the PM peak on the buses is a issue, right? But, so I live in Toms River, and I know, I live right around the corner from Toms River North High School, and I know the PM peak, because school lets out at 1:35, so I know not to go on that road at 1:35, because the buses and the cars and et cetera, however, 20 minutes later, it's over. So therefore, that doesn't constitute the PM peak of that road. So we are evaluating it. We're evaluating the peak hour trips, the peak hour issues, but it may or may not coincide with the schools. But if it does, the buses are 100% being counted, and they have been counted from the beginning.
Well, like I said, I'm sure that you are, but we
Yes.
just wanted to put on the record when our buses are on the road.
Yep.
So we know that you're already.
No, I
taking-
appreciate that, and that's important, and we will continue. Like, I don't personally evaluate the traffic studies. The engineer for the planning board and the zoning board does the evaluation and traffic studies, and I will absolutely convey that sentiment to them to make sure that the evaluation has included any school bus traffic. So we are 100% with you, and we'll continue to work with you, and we'll do what we need to do to make sure that the evaluations of these roadways is done appropriately.
That's all we're asking.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Perfect, yeah, if you
No
could
problem.
convey that back to the board as well, so, and we appreciate you bringing that to our attention, and, we look forward to continuing the partnership with the board.
Thank you so much. and
Thank
Thank
you.
you all for your time this evening.
Thank you,
Thank you
President
for
Miller.
making time to come here tonight. Okay.
Thank you, Lo. So at this time, I'm going to open the meeting up for the hearing of citizens and public comment. I have a list, and I'm going to ask you to come up for your comment. Mr. Miller, you already went. Okay. Jerry Barron?
Each person shall give their name and address to the clerk. The council shall be addressed as a collective body and not as an individual members. Each person shall have one turn to address the council, and comments shall not exceed a total of 5 minutes. Speakers shall be notified when their time has run, and no time extensions shall be permitted. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jerry Barron, B-A-R-R-O-N is my name, and I live at 37 Danella Way in Howell. Evening, council, mayor, council.
Good evening.
I got 4 things to discuss, so I'm going to try and get
You
this
can
done
only
fast.
give us 2.
You don't know the topics yet. The first 2 are easy. We have, May 21st, we have the 4th start of the farmer's market at Echo Lake. So you can circle your calendars. Every Sunday, we're there at 10 to 2 at Echo, it's a new location this year, same hours. Some vendors are returning, there's some new ones, but we invite everybody to come. All summer long we'll be there. I think it's 24 weeks in a row, or 25. Door number 2 here. We had a very successful, I would say, Joe, you can agree with me, Arbor Day, Earth Day. I think it went over quite well.
Very well, it was a great event.
It was nice that it was a non-political type of event. I discussed things with council or whatever that showed up or so. It was nice seeing everybody in a non-political manner. And it worked out well, I think, overall. Joe, I think we should have a recap meeting sometime in the next 2 weeks and discuss some of the good things and bad things I heard. Whenever you get time, I mean, yeah. I'm not available on Tuesdays and Wednesdays just to foul things up, but it was...
Wait till the end.
It was nice to see everybody, and the township showed up. It was a good public affair. Now, another thing is, this coming Saturday at 10 o'clock on Easy Street, we need volunteers. I invite mayor, council to show up. But we have maintenance day at, let's see, what park is it? Easy Street Park. But between, it starts at 10 o'clock. You can work an hour, I don't care. But bring your I was going to say pitchforks, but you can bring your rakes and shovels and
And your gloves.
gloves and your body, I don't care. But we need help. I think last time we had 6 people show up. You can't do it in 6 people. There's just too much to do. We're not there every week, so the weeds went out and everything else, so we need help. So that's the big thing. Okay. Now, choice number 4, my favorite topic. This goes back a while, but one of my main topics I've been asking information on for like the last 2 or 3 years is Optimum. In 2009, December of 2009, a 10-year agreement was signed. It expired in December of 2019. Now, to my knowledge, there's been no agreement between 2019 and 2023. The previous administration, I asked, well, a couple of things I was curious about is that they got $14,000, the AT department, or IT department, I should say, got $14,000 over 10 years. I was just curious where $14,000 went. The answer I got from the previous administration was it went for maintenance and equipment was bought. Thank you for your consideration, and that was it. I'm just curious where $14,000 went over 10 years. If it was equipment, what equipment was bought, what updates was sounding or whatever, I don't know. But it would be nice to know where $14,000 went over 10 years. Just a little thing like that. But I like to, I'm the last person still on, I have the copy of the agreement here, but I'm the last person still standing that was on the people who did the last agreement. I made the recommendation that people from the township that are non-employees go on it, and they appointed me. I was the only one. I would recommend the next time around, which I hope is soon, and the next agreement kind of gets kicked around, that they have more than one non-employee on it. I mean, I'll volunteer, I have the experience, but that's not up to me to decide. But, that's kind of it. But I think it's time we got together, and there's been a lot of problems recently. I lost everything for 14 hours.
We all did.
And I called them up, and I got a big $9 refund. So that was, wow, that's a tough one. And by the way, just for public knowledge, you have to call to request a refund, big $9, I guess. But you have to call. They're not going to give it to you without calling. It's on the back of your bill if you read it. But that's just a little public comment. All right, that's it. Thank you. And
Thank you, Jerry.
we'll wait some answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Springer? Did you want to come up together?
Yes,
Sure.
we're a team. Hi, everybody. We basically just wanted to come and put a face to the farm. We're the owners of Bear Creek Herbery. We haven't met the new council people yet, so we wanted to introduce ourselves. We are anxiously awaiting the master plan element that would allow Q Farms to hold events. Matt Howard has been kind and kept us informed, up to date. We were excited to hear about the state approving preserve farms to do events. I think that'll give it some momentum. So I put together a little packet for you, little letter about us and our history of our farm, which I think we gave to the council 2 years ago. And we have a petition that now has over 5,000 signatures. And I typed up some of the comments so that you can, take them home and read them at night when you're bored. But Ron was going to read one particular one that came in today that was really on point.
I would just ask, could you share that with Diane so that she can then give us a copy so we could read that? Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Mr. Springer.
We haven't been here for a while, but the last time we were here, there were some new members on the council, obviously. And we're trying to pursue a process right now where we're trying to line up all the things we need to do for the town to get an approval to do events. I believe you guys gave us a punch list. We're pursuing that. We took out a home equity loan to pay the engineer to get this thing started. He's already taken some soil samples. He's done some stuff on the parking, all of that. But the petition that my wife mentioned, we did have over 5,000 people sign it. And these are people that live in the community and in the area. And if it's okay, I'd like to read one of these responses that we got. This person says, "I am signing this petition because I support the farms of our community and want to see them to be able to sustain their farms and their livelihood. The cost to maintain and allow these farms to thrive in today's economy mean they have to diversify and think of new ways to generate revenue to support their farms. Allowing events will only further the maintenance and upgrades made to their farm as the consumer demands a well-kept and beautiful site for their event. The Herbery is already one of the most beautifully maintained farms I have come across, and that scope is far beyond Howell Township. This is a family that takes pride in their farm and wants to be able to continue to share their love of this beautiful land with others. So don't take away the opportunities for them to make money to continue to bring such a beautiful space to our town. The last thing we need is a vacant farm that becomes an eyesore. Let them continue to be successful, allow them to do events, and allow the town to have a beautiful space for all to enjoy in the community." A lot of people come to our farm and really do enjoy the experience. And I guess the last I spoke with Matt Howard, he said that the township is moving forward with the master plan, but I guess the decision the state made on preserve farms, he said, we're going to take a more of a global perspective on that. And I hope a global perspective is a more generous one for small farms like us. And in the meantime, we are struggling to survive. We're trying to keep everything going. And the last time I was here, I requested that Matt allow us to do events while we're undergoing this process. And even now, if I could ask again, if we could even do small events, like even 20 people or something, just to be able to bring, no big weddings, but just to be able to sustain this thing and keep us going. Because the engineer informed us that it's going to take almost a year. We're doing everything we can, but you write a letter, somebody sends somebody over, and the best estimate I got was it might be September before these folks get everything lined up. And I guess you're all aware of how quickly things move in these processes. It just seems like it takes forever. I'm not a young guy anymore. I really would love to be able to keep this farm going. And whatever you guys could do to help us, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can't say anything until after, right? Okay.
Unattended.
Jessica Policiano? Was that correct?
Yeah, close. Policino.
Policino,
Yeah.
forgive me.
It's okay. Good evening, everybody.
I made you Sicilian.
Sicilian, got a little bit of everything in there.
Jessica, can I have your address?
Sure, it's 2 Cindy Court,
Thank you.
Howell, New Jersey. I had something up here, but it disappeared. So I'm here tonight. We have been having somewhat of an issue on my street and in my immediate neighborhood. We have, unfortunately, we're right behind where the park and ride is on the corner of Aldrich and 9. And we've been seeing an influx of commuter parking on our street, which has led to increased foot traffic. It's increased, garbage on our lawns and things like that at all hours, starting at 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. And I have, my street's a very small street. There's a lot of little kids, and there's a safety aspect to it as well. I know in the surrounding streets there are non-commuter parking signs, and I've been in contact with Kyle Bush to get a sign for our street, but I came here tonight just to bring up that that issue is because the town seems to be getting bigger, and there's a lot of people coming and moving into the town. Just bringing awareness to the commuter parking on the residential streets, and the safety and the pollution aspect of it, and to see if we can, get a sign to put on Cindy Court. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the donut.
You're welcome.
At this point, there's no one else on the list. I would take a motion to close public comment.
Motion to close?
I'm sorry. If there is someone that wants to come up. Thank you, sorry.
I mean, this is correct, right? You're supposed to ask if anybody else wants to speak?
Well, usually,
I know the sign-in,
Yeah.
but if you come later, I don't want to be out of order.
no, you're fine.
Okay, great. Well, I want to thank you for showing up tonight. At the last meeting, I chided you...
Excuse me, can I have your name and address,
Oh,
please?
Benjamin Novick, 58 Yellowstone Lane, Howell, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Yeah, last meeting, I chided you for not showing up to a couple of meetings, so thanks a lot for showing up tonight.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I chided you for not showing up at important meetings, and we've been here a couple of times, and you haven't shown up, so...
Have you asked why?
So, well, I said if it's a medical emergency, that's fine.
It's death in my
I
family.
understand it. Well, I understand that, all right, and I said that, okay?
Thank
But
you.
besides that, there was a lot of other meetings you missed, so let's let it ride.
There were meetings that were scheduled without my knowledge.
Looked at the budget again, and I just wanted to know what you do with the anticipated revenue from all these new houses that are being built. So you don't have to answer.
Well, is this for the budget question? Is this a budget question?
No, this is what I asked last meeting.
Because the budget hearing's later.
I know
Okay.
that. But
So-
I'm just saying, I mean, we can't stay that late, so I looked at the video from the end of last meeting, and it didn't explain it, so that was my question on that. And then, also, this is Military Appreciation Month. There's guys and gals on duty 24/7, 365, that when they get the call, they're willing to lay their lives on the line. So, just want to mention that. And then the last thing is, I asked you guys before, the lighting in the lower parking lot. You walk out of the front, nice, lit, you go down the stairs, you know, the lights are amiss there. And it's not the first time I mention this, so if you could take care of it, I appreciate it. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Please come up.
Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't sign the paper beforehand.
That's fine. Could you just give me your,
My name is Sherry Rivas, and I reside at 3 Hearth Court. What is a relationship? The definition includes the way in which two or more people or concepts are connected, or the state of being connected. If we look at people, most people have relationships including parents, friends, a spouse, siblings, coworkers, a supervisor or a boss, community members, like the umpire who's at every baseball game, neighbors. And we have relationships with doctors, police, store owners, and other professionals. And how do we create relationship? Relationship is created through listening. Listening that allows for and encourages people to speak. People want to be heard, acknowledged, and listened to. Without this, people can respond in a number of ways, feeling frustrated, angry, isolated, insulted, or withdrawn. I'm a resident of Howell. That means that I and every other resident of Howell is in relationship with you, our mayor, our council members, our town manager, our professionals. Not only are we in a relationship, this relationship is defined as you representing me, that you are here in service to me and every other resident of Howell. I have a concern that the format of the citizen comments does not allow for this relationship to work. I'm asked to stand in front of you making comments about my concerns, but if I have a question, it won't be answered. I'm a person standing in front of you, and the response is the silent treatment. But not just the silent treatment, because at the end of the meeting, you will respond. You have the opportunity to respond. And your response does not allow me the opportunity to speak. When residents ask questions and there is no response, when their questions are not answered, they can become frustrated, angry, isolated, insulted, and withdrawn. Residents, one after another, can come forward and repeat the same concerns with no answers. This is an opportunity for you to explain your understanding of an issue, your position, the facts, the reasons why. There's an opportunity for you to educate residents and let us know that you are listening and not just tolerating our comments. I've attended some planning and zoning board meetings on Zoom because they're not in person yet. And I've come to the understanding that many of the things in front of those boards will pass, and there's not much that I can do to change that. Where I do see the opportunity to have my voice heard is with the master plan. If residents' voices are heard during the planning phase, then voices will not have to be so loud and disgruntled when they come in front of the boards. I'm asking that a formal process be made that allows the public to make comments and suggestions to the master plan subcommittee and to the zoning and planning boards when they're discussing the master plan. To my understanding, these things are not allowed at this time. I'm also asking that you consider changing the format of public comments in these sessions, as the dialogue, the listening, the acknowledgement of what is being said is what creates the relationship. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Parisi, Two Castle Court. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I wasn't going to speak, but then when I heard Mr. Miller come up here and talk about the traffic and the busing issues with Ms. Beam, I just felt compelled to come up here and just reiterate something that I've talked about at this dais in the past, and that I'd be remiss if I didn't say that I'm a little bit disappointed that the council hasn't introduced an ordinance to lift the weight restriction from the section of Howell Road between Vanderveer and 33 so that they can allow the trucks for the Howell Road warehouse to exit off Howell Road and go 100 yards and jump on the 33 bypass west and get the trucks and significantly reduce the amount of trucks that are going to be using Okerson Road to go back up towards Halls Mill Road. And Mr. Councilman Nadell, you and I have spoken about this, and I've talked about it, and I feel like this council and the planning board and the professionals have an opportunity to make an easy fix, because the planning board adopted the circulation element in last May, and it recommended lifting that weight restriction, and that was when that particular planning board application was in litigation, and then when it came back, they never changed the plan, or the council didn't lift the weight restriction, and they didn't change the plan that would allow for what I think would be better truck circulation at that warehouse, because it would allow the trucks to use both Okerson and Howell Road, and then by virtue, it would reduce the amount of trucks on Okerson Road by the Little League field. And that's the point, is that we all recognize that there's that North Howell Little League field on Okerson, and people have talked about how when they have the events at the Little League field, there's a lot of cars that are parked on the shoulder, and there's a lot of kids running back and forth across the road to get to their cars, and it seems like it's an unsafe condition. And I'm not at all suggesting that we're going to make it a perfect situation, but if we can make it a better situation, then we should try to do what we can to make it a better, a safer situation for the community. So that's just something that I just want to come back up here to suggest that maybe this is something that we could work towards. And the applicant for that warehouse, Active Acquisitions, has said that they don't plan on owning and operating these warehouses. They're simply in it to get an approval and sell the land with the approval, or build the warehouse and then sell the warehouse to out on the open market to whoever wants to buy the warehouse. So it would seem to me that if they're just looking to kind of flip the property, that whoever's going to come in and buy it would be a more attractive site for someone to come in and buy if they had two different ways in and out, if you understand what I'm saying, rather than just being limited to one way in and out. So I just wanted to just come back here and just suggest if this is something that can be done, that that you guys try to work towards doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come up? At this time, I'm going to close the public comment portion. May I have a motion?
Motion to close.
May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
May I have a motion for resolutions on the consent agenda?
No, we have our comment now.
Yeah, I think we're skipping forward on the agenda, Mayor, because typically we will respond to the comments at this point.
Right.
So would you like us to do that?
Do you want to do that, or you want to go,
Let's do that.
okay?
We'll follow the agenda, so we have
Okay.
response to public comments, followed by information and comments by elected officials, followed by the consent agenda.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you.
So with regard to Jerry's, yeah, the farmer's market starts up again. It'll be at Echo Lake. It'll be great. I think, it's a well-attended event, so we're looking forward to it. We'll get a date and time for a meeting. Then in terms of Optimum, I'll check into it. I mean, $14,000, I think it was spent. A lot of it was on Howell TV cameras and that kind of stuff. So I'll take a look and, we'll figure out where it went.
Regarding Bear Creek Arbory and the special events permits, the state did just pass legislation not too long ago. I can tell you that I've been in contact with the county as recently as yesterday regarding that. There's still a lot of confusion as to who owns what. The new law says preserved farms, it's open for special events, and the holder of the easement, which is usually the county or the state, is the one granting those permits, and there's already resistance from those parties because they don't necessarily want to own all of the ins and outs of that type of approval. Things like safe ingress and egress, ensuring that the Board of Health is properly inspecting, that there's facilities, that there's ADA access, that there's parking, stormwater management. They don't really want to do that. I pointed out that in the law, the town doesn't have jurisdiction over site plan and use variance approvals anymore. So there's a lot of confusion on that end, and that's because the county and the state have the same concerns as us in terms of how do we make sure these events are done safely. To answer the question about can I offer relief for small events, I can't. It's not a permitted use. If I say you can do a use that's not permitted, I'm opening the door for everything. That's not how the system works.
But wouldn't there also be liability on the farm itself?
Everybody, absolutely. One of the main concerns I brought up in certain circumstances is people were trying to use shuttle services on busy roads. And if somebody doesn't want to wait for a shuttle and they walk down a dark road, then there's a safety issue for the general public, for the motoring public, for that person. So those are the things that I take on as a land use officer if I approve it. I lose my protections under the law, and the question comes, okay, what ordinance did you approve this under? What process did you go through? And if I don't have the right answer, it's on me.
But then it also sets a precedence for somebody else.
Of course. So we are still looking at, we did recommend in the master plan the changes. We are still looking at the ordinance. When we started to kick around the ordinances and we had these conversations in the past, word got out, and we actually have some opposition to that ordinance between businesses that want to make sure that their approvals that they went through, which are lengthy and time-consuming and costly, that everyone else is following that, nobody's getting a free pass, to residents around farms that are saying, hey, it's one thing we sign on our, we know on our subdivision plats, there's a notice about dust, noise from the farming operation. But I didn't sign on to live next to a, subwoofer and a bass and a party and lights and all that. So there are real concerns. We've had a farm come in for a use variance. They got approval. There were concerns raised at the hearing, and I still get those concerns. Some of those concerns have been alleviated by the fact that the use variance has been granted, but there's still concerns, and we have to do what's right for everybody. We understand we want to make sure the farms have an opportunity to grow and survive. We don't want those going over into different uses, but we do have to weigh the balance.
So does a notice go out to the surrounding neighbors?
For a variance hearing or a site plan, yes, 200 feet will get noticed.
Okay.
Finally, in terms of specifically Bear Creek Arbory, we had a concept plan in November. It was very well received. We recommended come in for the application. Use variance or not, the use variance, we're not voting members, we can't say, but I have the planner here with me.
They came in for a concept plan. I recommended that they move forward with an application because in my experience with the board, I can't speak for them, I don't vote for them, but I think that it would have been very favorably received by them. So, again, that's what I would recommend. Make the application to the zoning board because they have very limited activities. The activities are limited in terms of duration. I don't think the board would look unfavorably on the application, in my experience, having been the professional for the board for years. So, I mean, I understand their concerns. My recommendation would be make the application to the board. I do think it would be favorably received.
And when you go to the board, there's two things we're looking at, the use variance, which is an important part, but also the site plan. If we do an ordinance, the site plan requirement doesn't go away. This isn't an ordinance passes and you're off and running. That site plan still needs to be done. Most of the comments in the concept plan were site plan based anyway. So the idea is have that application. We still recommend coming in for it. You're going to have to do the site plan no matter what, and we can get off and running.
I would concur, and I do, again, reiterate, I think that the zoning board would look favorably on the application, in my experience. I don't vote for them, but having worked for them for several years and hearing multiple applications, I don't think this is one that would be objectionable. So I do think that that probably would be the best option.
So I believe Jen just gave you some good advice.
What's that?
I think you just received some good advice.
Yeah, Jen gives good advice.
And then just to switch gears on the Cindy Court parking, our township engineer brought it to our attention that there is an issue. We're going to work on an ordinance. We're trying to make sure that when you have a barbecue, that nobody's going to get ticketed on the street because they're parking in the street. So we're either going to try and craft something around the commuter hours or find some way, maybe one side of the street parking, something that we can make sure that you're not having that issue anymore. But it is on our agenda. We hope to have something shortly.
Then in terms of anticipated revenue, so when we have the subdivisions and that being built, and I think that was a question, they'll typically come on our tax rolls at the time the CO is issued. So anything that's sort of still in planning, hasn't been built, hasn't been CO'd, they're not going to be on the tax rolls. So, and that's typically the tax assessor's function. So he closes the books, I think, in like October of every year. Oh, and we'll look at lights in the lower parking lot.
And I'll address Ms. Rivas's comment. It was very well articulated. She was having the issues with the question answer and the public comment section at both the township council meetings and with the zoning board, planning board, and the master plan subcommittee. Where I can't speak directly onto the other boards, I do know that subcommittees do not technically fall under OPMA, so they're not technically open public meetings. But this is a suggestion we can bring to the boards that maybe there's an opportunity to hold a public meeting on the master plan to get comments. Regarding the back and forth between the public and the council members during public comment, we've changed our format rather recently to prevent the back and forth because we have seen that it was not beneficial. It led to a lot of arguments. As of right now, all public members have 5 minutes, and they get a full 5 minutes to discuss their issues. In the past, we saw that people were getting cut off. They weren't getting their full 5 minutes. Sometimes people would get extensions, and other people would not. So this way, we're keeping everyone on an even playing field. Everybody gets the opportunity to comment, and we do our best to respond to all your comments afterwards. And again, we want to reiterate that if you have specific questions, if you want to be involved in crafting an ordinance, if you have issues, you can reach out to us directly. You don't have to come back and forth and have a comment at a public meeting. We always welcome that. But we're also available by email, by phone.
often to get things done, it's a great idea to contact us at our professional email addresses, and we can start working on something to then pass at a public meeting. And I know that stands for all the council members as well. They're very open to talking to all the residents. So I would encourage people to continue to do that.
May I add something, Caitlin?
Of course.
Because I think we all agreed on this new format because of what has taken place over the years, and also to realize this is a big town. A few weeks ago, I think we had 29 residents come and speak. So I think this is more orderly, it's definitely more fair. And we want the residents to know that we are listening, we are taking notes, and if we can't get an answer to you tonight, we make sure, we bug you enough to make sure we get an answer so we can get back to you the following meeting. So I kind of think this works a lot better, but please, I want to reiterate that we are listening to every resident, taking notes, and trying to get back to your concerns as soon as possible.
Also, we've moved our comments now up in the agenda so that we're going to be talking right after this, so everyone is still here. And if anybody really wants to engage us in a conversation, stay, and we'll talk. I'll stay here till midnight to talk if I need to. So.
So I'm just going to comment on the comment that the planning board requested that weight restrictions were lifted off certain roads. That is wholly untrue. The planning board has not made any such request about lifting weight restrictions whatsoever. There was an inquiry into what the weight restrictions meant on certain roads, but there was never any request on behalf of the planning board that was received by either Mr. Clark or Mr. Howard or the governing body to lift weight restrictions for certain roads within the community. So I just take exception to that assertion that that's true. That is absolutely not true. And, we have continued to work as the planning board with the administration and the governing body on dealing with the applications that have come our way. But there has been no overt assertion that we're going to lift anything to make things easier or what have you for any type of land use. That is totally untrue.
Jen, can I bring something up about
Sure
that?
can.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
We came into this application when it was already done. And Ian's going to speak today about the MLUL, and this is one of the reasons why what he's going to talk about is important. I already know a tractor-trailer cannot make a turn at the intersection of Howell Road and Route 33, okay? So that's the reason why it is what it is. And I went through there 70 times in the last year, and every time I go through there, I look at this road and I say, a box truck can't make a turn there, never mind a tractor-trailer. So we're not going to do anything that's going to allow that, and it's about the only thing right now that we can do, unless off-site traffic becomes something that we can consider in applications. But as it is now, we can't. But that's the reason why we don't want trucks going that way.
I totally understand that, which is why some people may have an issue with, let's say, my tone this past week when we had a particular application before the planning board that had some concerns about traffic circulation. And I questioned the applicant's professionals regarding the testimony and the assertions that certain movements would not happen, yes, happen, whatever. So yes, I mean, I do want to reiterate, the board's professionals have been advocating for the township's position. The fact that the zoning is what the zoning is, and that has a statutory weight, it has statutory weight, correct?
Yes.
And therefore, an off-site traffic is something that technically on a permitted use cannot be evaluated. But we still push for it anyway, right? So as you know, we push for issues on very specific roadways, movements, et cetera. But I understand your position. The law is the law, and we have to abide by the law, and we are only allowed to evaluate things based upon what the law allows us to evaluate things on. So, we have been pushing as hard as we can, understanding the concerns of the governing body and the public. And so, maybe my tone's not appreciated, but I'm trying to push for you guys to push as hard as I can to advocate for the position that you guys have. But at the end of the day, I understand where you're coming from, but, we can only do what we can do at the planning board, given the law, the zoning, what's allowed to be evaluated. Off-site traffic is not allowed to be evaluated under permitted use, only the ingress and egress. So we're doing the best we can, and, we're pushing and fighting as hard as we can.
And listen, we appreciate that, and, a lot of people may not know that you're just not on that meeting. You spend your whole day on the phone.
Well, and that's the other thing that the public doesn't understand, is that, the meeting happens at 7 o'clock, but between the hours of 8 and 6:30, 6:50, we're on the phone the whole day, working, pushing, and that's just that one day. That's not even to talk about the days leading up to it before we get to the public meeting. So and it's not just me, right? It's the attorney, it's the engineer, and the tree expert. We're pushing the entire time leading up to that meeting. So, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to try to get the application to be as palatable as it can before it gets to the public. And, I'm not known to be nice. So, it's not like I'm walking it through, I'm pushing as hard as I can on behalf of the town to make sure that we get the best application we can get by the time it gets to the public. And it may not be great. I can push only as hard as I can push. So that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
Are we completed with the answers?
Yes. So we can move on to the next agenda item. Yes, thank you. Which is
Thank you.
information and comments by our elected officials. Thank you again, Jen.
I'm going to hold mine to the end. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you. First, I would like to thank everybody that participated in the National Day of Prayer on May 4th. Every community house of worship had gotten a letter of invitation, and we had 7 respond. Although we haven't had the National Day of Prayer program hosted by the town, by the municipal government in 3 years as a result of COVID, it's back. So I'm happy to say that already our Stephen Fetcher is working on next year's foundation for that evening as well. So for those that participated, thank you very much. Secondly, at the end of this month, which we all know is Memorial Day, May 29th, we will hold our usual program, which is actually hosted by the VFW, and we join in on the 29th at Sodrell Memorial Field, as we did last year, and will continue to do so. Following our program at 11, at 12 o'clock, Farmingdale does their annual parade. And although I'm sure parade is probably more fun and it's more lighthearted, I encourage everyone to come to the memorial service itself, as that really is the crux of the day. So again, it's at Soldier Memorial. It'll be at 11 o'clock. Everyone is invited. If you have friends that don't live in Howell and they'd like to come to a program that has some merit and some true feeling to it, please invite them to come to ours. Also, again, I've talked to Manager Clark, who is talking to other professionals. Veterans housing is still big on my hit parade. We are trying to work through that and to get some foundation to get this going. So along with that, I would ask our clerk's office to prepare the Military Appreciation Month proclamation for our next meeting.
Will do.
It'll be certainly fitting that just a few days before Memorial Day. I think that'll have a substantial impact on people. Of course, this Sunday's Mother's Day, so please treat your mothers well. And lastly, I think it's, I know sometimes the change in our format might seem upsetting to people. We are trying to be as fair and as equitable as possible with getting the information back in a fair and equitable manner as well. But again, as stated, you don't have to come to a meeting to have your question answered. Professionals are available by telephone and webmail as well as the council members. So I think tonight a lot of the questions were answered rather quickly, which is really the focus of what we're trying to do, to keep tempers and to keep everyone in a good flow, so that when you ask a question calmly, your answer is calm. And I've said it 1,000 times, but I'll say it one more time. When you ask a question, the answer may not be what you wanted to hear, but I think honesty and being forthright is the most important thing. And that's truly an objective that this council has taken under their belt as the year progresses. So we're trying, and I know you're trying as well, to learn the new mode, and we appreciate your patience, so we continue to ask for yours. Thank you.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Did you? Okay.
We'll get to those guys.
So
Ladies
our
first.
residents were very concerned a few weeks ago, as we all are, about the warehouse construction in our town. But I'd also like to bring our attention to some unreasonable and what I feel are unconstitutional, arbitrary, and capricious demands from the government through COA. So I'm going to ask our township manager where we stand with the next round of COA. I'd also like to read very briefly, I've been reading the Home Act, and I think everybody should look into this, because the federal government is coming up with a lot of things that would affect a beautiful rural town, suburban town actually, like ours, with a lot of open space. This is a summary of S.2234, Affordable Home Act. Among other provisions for low-income and homeless individuals, this bill would require that HUD to construct and preserve multifamily rental housing projects in rural areas. So if there's any way that we can take a stand, kind of, get ahead of this before it comes down on us, maybe you could work with Mr. Bayer. I know we don't have the numbers yet.
No, we don't. It's still an open issue as to what formula is going to be used, what period of time. So there's a lot of moving parts with it. We have been working with him for a while to get ready for the next round. There's a few things that we're looking to do, starting with the calculation, whether or not COA will ever be reconstituted. I know there's a lawsuit percolating out there right now about that very fact. Whether they exist or not, we're still going to be facing, the courts, fair share, and all of that in 2025. So yeah, we've been working, and we'll get Andy working even a little bit harder to move forward on all this stuff.
Thank you.
Councilman?
Just a couple brief things. We've been doing this for a few months already, and when things aren't on an agenda for a particular meeting, doesn't mean that nothing's happening going towards that goal of getting something done. So after the last few meetings, everyone coming up with their complaints about, the warehousing and how it's going to impact the town, there were a few things that I reached out to Mr. Clark and Mr. Howard on, that they could request that they start working on it. Some things do take longer than others, and some things we get ordinances done rather quickly. So even though something isn't necessarily being discussed at a particular meeting, doesn't mean that nothing is happening. So there are several requests I put into them. First one being analyze our truck routes, ensure that these trucks aren't going down residential roads where there's children playing, look at the whole circulation element with these warehouses that have been recently approved. Second comment that's been coming up a lot is 24/7 operation. We don't want, excessive noise in businesses going in the middle of the night, but these things have to be done smartly too. We can't, have other businesses being shut down that would otherwise not cause such an inconvenience being open at night. And another item that came up was the truck idling. That could be an issue coming around that. So I asked them to take a look at all those items for me.
And just to give an update on a couple of those items, we had taken the state ordinance for truck idling, and it self-defeated itself for our purposes. It allowed idling when there's temperature changes to keep the climate controlled inside the cab, and it allowed idling overnight for sleeping. So we said, well, that's not really going to work for us. So we have to take a fresh look. We probably have to incorporate some of that state law and go above and beyond, and we have to do that very carefully with our attorneys to make sure that it's going to be something that holds up, can hold up. So it does take a little bit of time. 24/7, same idea. We have to make sure that we don't do something that's going to negatively impact everybody else. We also can't be so specific as to target a specific use or property. So we are trying to look at it globally, but believe it or not, and we have gotten complaints about this, a lot of our properties on Route 9 operate 24/7 because that's when deliveries come in. ShopRite delivers a lot of stuff at night, so do some of the other stores. We're trying not to exclude them and create other hardships where maybe there aren't issues before. Truck routes, we've met with a couple residents recently, some around town. Arnold Boulevard resident who's very concerned. We've explained the truck route process. It is lengthy. There's two chapters in state law that we have to follow, and ultimately, if you're going to seek any type of truck route that will limit, restrict, or require truck traffic to take a certain route, it has to have DOT approval, you have to have county approval, and you have to have a lot of backup to support it. So traffic studies, crash data, volume data, you're talking about, if you're trying to do a global one, a study of the entire town. And if the data doesn't support it, it's right there in the law, it will be denied. So it is a very detailed, involved look, and we are starting on that endeavor.
I just have a question, just because I just don't know. But old roads are not as thick as new roads, or they're there for so long that they have, I want to call, they're not structurally as sound as new roads. And so let's say row A, I'm making up the numbers, right? You can only have 100 pounds on this road, but then trucks come on this road and they're 300 pounds. So what does the township have, or can the township do anything about that to protect itself? Is there anything that we can do to protect our roads, so to speak, that today cannot afford that weight?
In the short term, not necessarily. Your zoning will direct your uses where it is, and we've tightened up where the big applications can go moving forward, and they are more supportive along state roads and county roads. If you're looking to do a change like the truck routes, I mean, that's ultimately what you're saying, is this road can't handle it, take this road instead. That's the long process where we have to be able to prove it to the state with the data and the information to say, this is where we want it and why, because if we just went and put up a sign, it's not legal.
But what if it wasn't a truck route to begin with? Let's say it was a back road, but trucks just started using it.
There's no road that's not a truck route unless you designate one way or the other.
Yeah, everything's a truck route. So what you're doing by designating a system of truck routes is saying, those are the roads you're on, the rest of them you can't be on. Right now, they can be on every road in the town. And so part of the tension arises, and why it needs state approval is, like I said a couple times, interstate commerce, because every single municipality, if they could, would say, well, we don't want trucks coming through. They're noisy, they're loud, they tear up our roads, they do damage, they create these hazards. They're okay to deliver goods to our house, but we don't want them going through. Well, then stuff doesn't move in interstate commerce, right? So that's why that kind of stuff would be dead out of the gate, and that's why before the commissioner of the DOT at the state level will sign off on it, we need to give him or her backup support saying it's a valid request that we're making.
No, yeah, I totally get that. I was just wondering, I didn't realize that any road is a truck road, like, that they could just go wherever they feel like
All
it.
the concerns council has, the public has, they're all valid. There was a law put forward in 2021, or a bill, that stalled out on the state level, and it talked about the fair share of ownership that the truckers have, or the trucking companies have, in the investment of our roads, because we're left to maintain what they travel on. And it stalled out. We didn't get any type of backing from the state legislator to be able to have more teeth as to even lifting the restrictions on the municipal land use law, lifting these restrictions I'm talking about for the truck routes, or having a fund maybe that helps us with the disproportionate wear and tear that the roads do take. So we're left with these other options to try and follow the law.
Thank you. Sir?
Good evening, everyone. Matt, Joe, or Caitlin, what you just were talking about, but we are in the very preliminary stages of looking at trying to do something with our truck, where trucks are going to go in this town.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we are, or you are, working on that. All right, so I wrote a lot of things down, but a lot of them have already been covered, and boy, we covered a lot of ground tonight. But I want to bring something up, and I want to give a little bit of a different perspective on it, and that's the school funding cuts. I am much more familiar with the Freehold Regional High School District than I am with our local schools, and I'm lucky to have Sue and Ian here because they know a lot more about them than I do. I want to put something in perspective. So we're hearing a lot about the busing and what's being taken away, but I want you to understand how much more it is than that. I taught engineering in the Freehold Regional High School District for 17 years after I retired from the state police. The superintendent's a friend of mine. I went to their budget meeting the other night and heard what they had to say and spoke to him afterwards. I want everyone to understand that this didn't just start this year. I believe right around my last year there, 2018, the state put forth that they were going to take $26 million away from the Freehold Regional High School District over a period of years, and this is the last year that that's happened. That was half of their state aid taken away. For those of you who aren't familiar, maybe many of you are because you've had kids who've gone through there, the district is wonderful. It provides a great education. It also has some of the best high schools in the state. The superintendent is beside himself because of the cuts he's going to have to make down the road. He's already cut 132 positions. So what you're going to see now is you're going to see the face of that district changing. I mean, I taught there. I know. I think when I started there, I had a budget for around $6,500 that covered 6 sections of electronics. When I left, my budget was $2,000. I would pay out of my pocket, just like a lot of others teachers do, just to try to maintain. So it's a lot deeper than just the busing. It's going to affect the education in that whole district. All right, so what can you do about it? It's an election year. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. Get on the phone, start calling. We've already reached out to our District 30 legislators, and I do believe I heard that they're going to be putting something forth to try to restore some of that funding. I don't like to play politics with education, and that's why I'm not going to mention parties or like that. But reach out to Vin Gopal. He's the Senate chair of the Education Committee. You can go right on his page and send him an email. Look up the members of the Senate Education Committee. send them a message also. Understand, though, for every district that is mad because money is taken away, you have districts that are happy because they've got more money. All right? Now, I'm not going to say it's right. I'm not going to say it's wrong. I'm just going to say the effect it's going to have on us, and it's bad. The Freehold Regional High School District educates students at a very high level below the state average. We've seen a lot of school districts that have received a ton of money that are educating students for double the state average and who have graduation rates of 30%. Throwing money does not solve the problem. Just want to reiterate how serious it is past the busing issue, and it's bad. So make those phone calls or send those emails, because this year it's going to make a difference. So, and that's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Is everybody complete along the wall?
Yeah, I think, no, we're good with the updates for this meeting.
So at this time, I would call for a motion for resolutions R23-174 through R23-204B. If anyone has a question or wants to pull resolution out, please let me know.
The only thing is, do you want to make comments as well, Mayor? I know
No,
everybody
yeah.
else did.
I'm good
okay.
now.
Okay.
I'll make a motion. I will make a motion for all the resolutions up to and including 23-204B.
Second.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
Councilman Gager?
Yes.
Councilman Nadell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
Yes.
Thank you. The consent resolutions pass.
Okay. Resolution R23-205, requesting that changes be made to municipal land use law to assist municipalities in better dealing with the proliferation of warehouses. May I have a motion to approve resolution,
I have a comment on this one.
please?
So there's things we're doing at the local level, but some things are out of our control from the state level when it comes to this, where we can only take limited numbers of practices into play with ingress and egress, and that's really limited with what we could do. So I've actually personally spoken to Assemblyman Sean Keane about this resolution, and he's willing to get behind it and try to get something done with a bill, supporting a bill, or introducing a bill at the state level. And it's not just our town. It's other towns in Legislative District 30 and throughout the state. So hopefully this could get some traction, and we could get this updated to have some more local control over what's coming into our town.
Thank you. May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve R23205.
Second.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
Councilman Gager?
Yes.
Councilman Nadell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution R23-205 passes.
I have under unfinished business, public hearing and adoption of ordinances. Ordinance 0-23-13, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Howell authorizing the purchase of Block 168, Lot 19.09, and Block 177, Lot 5.03, in the Township of Howell from the New Jersey Department of Transportation. I would like to open this up for public comment. Seeing none, I would close it and ask for a motion.
Motion to adopt O2313.
No, excuse me, motion to close public
Motion to
comment?
close public
Oh.
comment.
May I have a motion to close?
Motion to close public comment.
Second.
Sorry.
All in
Thank
favor?
you.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Motion to adopt O2313.
Second?
Second.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
Councilman Gager?
Yes.
Councilman Nadell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
Yes.
Thank you. The ordinance is adopted.
At this time, there is no introduction of new ordinances. This is correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Now we have the 2023 municipal budget. So we have Resolution R23-206, resolution determining that the township's budget for the fiscal year 2023 shall be read by title only. May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept Resolution 23206.
May I have a second?
Second?
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
Councilman Gager?
Yes.
Councilman Nadell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
Yes.
Thank you. The resolution passes.
Resolution 23-207, certifying compliance with the United States Equal Opportunity Commission's enforcement guidance on the considerations of arrest and conviction records in employment decisions under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. That was long. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 23-207?
Motion to approve Resolution R23-207.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
Councilman Gager?
Yes.
Councilman Nadell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
Yes.
Thank you. The resolution passes, and I'd like to mention that the affidavit has been signed during the meeting.
Yes, it's completed for you.
Thank you.
You just signed your name? I had a check for you. Resolution 23-208. Resolution assuming responsibility for budget examination of the 2023 municipal budget and certifying that the 2023 municipal budget has fulfilled all necessary statutory requirements. May I have a motion to approve R23-208?
I'll make a motion to approve R23208.
May I have a second?
Second.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
Councilman Gager?
Yes.
Councilman Nadell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
Yes.
Thank you. The resolution passes.
I would like to now open the floor for public comments on the adoption of the 2023 municipal budget.
Each person shall give their name and address to the clerk. The council should be addressed as a collective body and not as an individual member. Each person shall have one turn to address the council, and adoption of the 2023 municipal budget comments shall not exceed a total of 5 minutes. Speakers shall be notified when their time has run, and no time extensions shall be permitted.
After that, is there anyone that wants to come up and speak on the budget? No comments? At this time, I'll ask for a motion to close.
Motion to close public?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution R23-209, adoption of the 2023 municipal budget. May I have a motion to approve Resolution R23-209?
Motion to approve Resolution R23-209.
May I have a second?
Second.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
Councilman Gager?
Yes.
Councilman Nadell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
No.
Thank you. Resolution R-23-209 passes.
Thank you. The following meeting dates are Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023, executive session at 6 and regular session at 7. Before I go, I do want to thank you for the time and effort and energy that you did put into the budget. I don't take away the fact that it's not an easy thing to do. I totally understand. But I just cannot, in good faith and in conscience of my own, for the people that voted me in, vote for an increase of 4%. Hence why I voted no. But I do not want to take away the work and effort that went into putting the budget together. At this time, may I have a motion to close?
So if you'd like, we can explain again why the budget is the way it is.
I've had my question and answered.
Okay. Is there anything in particular?
I believe all my questions have been answered.
Is there any particular area where you foresee potential cuts that would help us save on the budget?
That's, I believe, your job.
I presented the budget that I think under the circumstances is responsible to the taxpayers. If you disagree, there is an amendment process, and you're more than welcome to bring up any kind of cuts that you might like to make at this time, whether it's to services and
I've
stuff
already
like that.
sent my emails to you, received your responses, and I still believe I do not agree with your budget. May I have a motion to close?
Prior, before we do that, I would like to say that it's important for the public to know that management did give the opportunity to council to meet with the manager in the different departments if you chose to, 2 at a time, because the sunshine law would prohibit 3 members of council to meet with them at one time. So I do appreciate I was able to meet with you 2 different times for my questions, because I just thought, if I email something, it's a little hard to go back and forth sometimes in an email, and I appreciate you bringing in department heads to further the information that made sense to me.
I didn't get that.
Everyone got those emails.
I got no department.
Mayor, I sent out emails in June,
I voted
in
no.
July.
My vote
There was an
is no.
opportunity in November to come to the public hearing.
My vote is no.
I sent out an email in December, in January, in February, 6 in March, 4 in April.
I received a budget
There's
2 weeks
ample
before.
opportunity to meet anytime you
My vote is
wanted.
no, Mr.
And I will
Clark.
remind you, Mayor, that email is a two-way street. So anytime you had questions or wanted to meet, you were more than welcome to email or call or text or make some sort of contact indicating that you had an interest in discussing the budget.
What? I'm not entertaining you.
To be specific with my comment, when I would ask a certain question about, I'll use, for instance, DPW, I know that that information came directly from Paul Novello through the manager, as the Faulkner Act would insist that we do. But this is the first time in several years that I've been afforded the opportunity to get that information back through the chain of command pretty quickly. So I do appreciate it, and I do appreciate the time that you took, and you spent with different council members. So I look forward to next year, because I think this will probably be your MO, so to speak, with terms of the budget. And I think it's important that we all take the necessary time. And I look forward to our next, I believe the PBA contracts are next. So
PBA
this-
contracts are next,
Yeah.
but the 2024 budget starts tomorrow. So anytime any of you want to meet and talk, let me
Agreed.
know.
Yeah. So, with
Sorry,
everything here.
so it starts next Monday.
So with everything approved, it'll be good to go into negotiations with the PD, knowing that we have things in place as with the other different departments of the town, and I thank you for your time.
If I could just piggyback to, just a reminder to the town, especially in the times we're in, we want to hire a few more police officers. We definitely need more code enforcement officers. I think everybody would agree on that. And we definitely, Matt needs help. And we also are fighting Trenton, and we know how that goes, because they've imposed this 23% increase on the state health benefit program that we have no say over, and we have no choice. We also have, contractual obligations, pension. There's nothing we could do unless, I don't know, if the mayor wanted to cut some services, or I'm not sure, because this is news to me. I thought we were very pleased with all the work that Lou did and the presentation that Mr. Clark gave. I think you guys did a great job presenting it, and nobody wants their taxes to go up. I don't want my taxes to go up. I want to stay here. But we don't want to cut services. So I'd love to hear a solution, but
I think the solution is what we've presented. It's the most responsible thing we could do under the circumstances. I mean, I won't go through the budget presentation again, but we detailed the
I know. No, I know.
the increases that were sort of forced down upon us.
And fuel
we have
costs.
to account for it. And, we have to be realistic in terms of the revenue we anticipate, because a record year in one year does not set a benchmark. It sets a record year, so we have to be reasonable in anticipating what might be coming in later on, so.
We've increased our revenues every year. That's a thing that I ask for every year, for us to realize the actual of the prior year, and usually we do. This year, for $1.5 million.
We do not this year
Which
because we are
it
not
was-
gap accounting. We are cash accrual, Mayor, and we have to be conservative. We do not gamble with the taxpayers' money. Because if we don't get that $2.7 million this year, and I can tell you we're trending behind it substantially right now, we will end up being here next year explaining to the taxpayers why we followed this ridiculous suggestion to just move the same amount of revenue forward to the
Ridiculous
next year.
suggestion.
It is absolutely ridiculous and irresponsible
I'm
under the
done.
circumstances.
You're so inappropriate and insubordinate, actually. I would like to take a motion to close the meeting.
Motion to close?
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.